British Spy Stories, Season 1. Spy or Traitor. Episode 26. When Gabby wakes, she checks her phone, and Hans has left a message saying that he has learnt some new information from Mel and that they should chat. She walks out to the balcony and puts her phone to her ear. Hans is excited and wants to tell her what he has found. She listens and can feel her pulse rise as he goes through the GISS information. Hans has screen grabs of the comms between Murphy and Brussels, and a string of real-time tracer comms that the GISS sent when they were live in the building next to Mac on the day he died. She tells him to send this batch of documents to Sir Bernard as well, like he did before. Gabby steps back into the room and opens her laptop, then logs into Oberon and messages Sir Bernard with the decrypt key for all of the information bundle that Hans has sent. There are 2 hours left on the time lock, after which Sir Bernard will have all of the information he needs to identify the mole. Gabby showers, and by the time she is dressed, Catherine is awake. "I need your help," says Gabby. "Cool. There's a man who's trying to kill me." "Great start to a story," says Catherine, raising her eyebrows. "It was a mystery to me at first, but I have now found out that I killed one of his gang members in Berlin." "And he wants revenge?" says Catherine. "Yes, but also I stole his jet ski and hit him with a bottle of champagne. Is this your way of getting a man's attention?" "I'm serious." Catherine stops her playfulness. "I want to meet him and put a stop to it. I need you to cover me, like you did for Riverside." "Where are you meeting?" says Catherine. "I'm going to suggest that we meet in the marina here in Nice." "Not many rooftops for me to shoot from," says Catherine. "Can you do ground cover rather than sniper?" "Sure, handgun, not rifle. We've got to be so careful, though." "I know," says Gabby. "I'm hoping no shots will be fired. I just want to talk and clear the air." "Why would he do that?" says Catherine. "I've got some things to blackmail him with, so I hope he'll drop it." "But you can't be that certain," she says, "or you wouldn't want me there too." "He is dangerous," says Gabby. "He may also be crazy and not respond to logic, but I have to do something. I'm not going to be looking over my shoulder forever." "When are you thinking of doing this?" says Catherine. "Today." To maintain an air of normality, Lawton goes into the office at Vauxhall Cross. Martine is very concerned about him and tells him 3 times that he is better off in bed and resting. By lunchtime, he needs some air, and taking the sandwiches that Martine insisted on buying for him, he walks for half an hour north across Vauxhall Bridge, past the Tate, and on through the stuccoed houses of Westminster. The sky is 5 colours of blue that stretch over the bustling city for as far as the eye can see. He walks, unaware of much of the activity around him. His fingernails newly raw, his eyes wet and red from too many sleepless nights. He hadn't expected Moscow to act so quickly, and although both he and his Russian friend had known that their lives were at risk each time they met, he never imagined it would end this way. In his mind, he can see them crossing the bridge from Vladivostok to the islands beyond, standing on the beach and watching the sun go down over the sea of Japan. He walks without purpose. A woman with a pushchair nearly crashes into him and says something he doesn't hear, but it pulls Lawton out of his dreamscape. He looks up, and he is nearing Buckingham Palace. He crosses the road and walks along in front of the high fencing that allows the view of the forecourt of the building. He stops and watches the guards standing stock still, never questioning their duty day in or day out. His own loyalty is more complex. He has learnt to love parts of the United Kingdom, but his heart is still Russian. Is he fooling himself? How can he justify the years of being a quisling? The blood on his hands of his fellow countrymen and women, who he has sent to their deaths. He may as well have killed them himself. He's a murderer. He can feel the weight of their eyes upon him. For the first time in years, he cries for the deaths, for the lies, and for himself. Lawton walks to a bench at the edge of the gardens that surround the palace and sits down. He doesn't notice someone behind him. It's not over, Petrov. Lawton starts to turn his head, but the stranger snaps. Look forwards. I can't go on. You have no choice, says the voice. Why did you kill him? Ivan chose his own path. He'd given you many years of service, for God's sake. This is a job for life, as you know. Your new controller will be in touch. I can't, whispers Lawton. But no more words come from his lips. He turns to look, and there's no one behind him. Stuart cooks fish pie for lunch using a recipe that he remembers from his childhood. He has always avoided memories from his childhood before. Not that there aren't any good ones, but he has never had any moments in his life that needed to use memories, until now. Geraldine has given him much more than love. She has given him a reason to live. He has a slight regret that it has taken him until now to find someone like Geraldine. If he had met her in his 20s, he could have started his new life then. She walks into the kitchen and hugs him from behind, and he puts his hand over her arms on his waist. The buzzer goes off on the oven and he serves the food. They sit at the dining table that has now been moved into the lounge as it's cozier. They moved the chairs and sofa around last night and made a better use of the space, as Geraldine had called it. After we leave here, Stuart begins, I'd like to carry on seeing each other. She smiles at him. You know, it's only an idea. He takes a bite of food. It's a lovely idea, she says, moving her little finger out to touch his. I might move. Get a new flat, he says. Where would you want to live? Charlottenburg, maybe? That's lovely. Quite trendy. Is it noisy? You're an old fuddy-duddy, she says. I just like the peace and quiet. We'll find you somewhere, says Geraldine. A ring on their doorbell vibrates down the hall. Alexander, he says, to which she nods in silence. Neither of them gets up, expecting the other to go. Then they both get up at the same time and laugh. You go, she says. Alexander is more nervous today than the previous evening. He arrives carrying a sports holdall. He refuses any drink again and sits at the dining table without them offering, so they sit too. Did you manage to get the information? Says Geraldine. Alexander opens his bag and pulls out a pile of loose A4 documents that create a messy pile on the table between them. Stuart and Geraldine look through the papers, picking off small bundles and flicking through them. Murphy told them what to look out for in the paperwork. Certain names and certain places that MI6 already know about have to be there for the haul to be valuable. Who's this? Says Geraldine, holding up an image of a man and a woman cuddling in a booth at a nightclub. Alexander is quiet for a second before answering. That's Franz, my brother. And the girl? Charlotte, his girlfriend. Geraldine looks again at the photo. Are these addresses of all the gang members? Asked Stuart. All the ones I could get. Stuart and Geraldine continue to inspect as Alexander watches them, nervously pulling his hand through his hair and shifting in his seat. Can we talk? says Stuart to Geraldine, and they go out to the kitchen.
Is this enough?
He says.
I think so. What did Murphy say he wanted?
Says Stuart.
Gang members, details, locations? Yeah, that's right. We've got most of them, he says.
She nods.
Shall we tell him okay? Yes, you tell him,
she says.
I need to go to the bathroom.
Stuart walks back into the lounge and sits opposite Alexander.
That's fine,
he says.
And will you keep your side of the deal?
Says the boy.
Of course,
says Stuart. What happens now?
We'll take this back to our people, and they'll put a plan together. We'll arrange for you to meet in a day or two and make you disappear.
The boy smiles and nods. Geraldine walks back into the room. She raises a Grash MP433 handgun and fires 2 shots at close range, one into the head of each man. Alexander falls forwards and Stuart falls backwards, hitting his head on the floor and crumpling into a pile. She runs to the front door and opens it. Ned is standing there with a large bag on his shoulder. I heard, he says. They go together to the lounge. Ned unzips the holdall and lays out 2 body bags. Geraldine goes through the flat, smashing plates and throwing ornaments on the hard floor. Help me, says Ned. They lift each of the 2 bodies into the bags and zip them up. I'll bring the van up. He goes back out and returns a minute later with a rolled-up carpet. He unravels it and rolls Stuart up into the rug. The 2 of them carry the carpet and Stuart outside, covering him with sheets inside the back of the van. Then return for Alexander and repeat the process. Geraldine takes a knife from Ned's bag and, holding her arm over the table, pushes the blade into the skin on her forearm. Her blood drips out next to the pool of Alexander's that is already staining the papers he left there. She wraps a bandage around her arm, collects the papers together, has a final check around the flat, then runs out and pulls the door shut. Outside, Ned is waiting in the van, nervously tapping his fingers on the wheel. She jumps into the passenger seat, and they drive away, without looking back.